Welcome back, Sons of Pitches. It's episode 22. We got a nice, quick, short little episode for you because at the weekend we did have a lot of international friendlies, a couple Euro qualifications, just an international break in general. Some fun games to talk about. Our Italianos got to experience a great game actually firsthand down in New Jersey, if I'm not mistaken. So we're definitely going to get that little recap. That's going to be pretty cool. Always best to see a game live over TV every day of the week. But we'll start quickly with the three teams that qualified for the Euros that are happening this summer. It's going to be the hot thing to watch this summer, so it's good to see that it's all wrapped up, all the groups now. The three teams that moved on were Poland, who knocked out Wales in a penalty shootout. Lewandowski and his team actually not even registering a shot on target during 120 minutes, which is unreal. But we'll get into that. Of course, Ukraine beat out Iceland 2-1. Iceland failing to ever remake that dream run that they had some years back. And then Georgia knocking out Greece in penalty shots and penalty kicks as well. Georgia, who's going to sneak into that Portugal group, of course, preventing Greece and Portugal from having the rematch of the 2004 Euros. So denying that storyline. But as far as those three games goes, any thoughts from you guys, from you gentlemen?
Yeah, I felt really bad for Wales, to be honest. I watched a lot of the game, and I think Poland had better chances despite not registering a shot on target, but just such an awful way to lose. It was like, I mean, honestly, it was kind of heartbreaking watching Dan James step up to take the penalty. I was watching it at work with a coworker, and both of us immediately, as soon as Dan James stepped up to take the penalty, had thought that he missed before he even taken it. And I think that was what a lot of people thought. I was listening to TalkSport after the game just because I was pretty curious to see what the Welsh fans would call in and say, and it seemed like nobody had much confidence at all in the kid. It's too bad. It seemed like it was a moment too big for him. And yeah, unfortunately, he's let the country down. But I think I give Wales a lot of credit. I mean, this is a nation who are trying to build post Gareth Bale era teams now, and I think it just goes to show how unbelievable a footballer Gareth Bale was at the time. I mean, Wales were knocking on the door of a European final at one point in time with Bale and their team. I know they played Portugal and took them pretty close to the end. So yeah, I think with that being said, Wales have some really exciting players. I think I would have rather have seen Wales go. I think this Poland team is very crap. They're boring. There's not too many people I get excited about outside of Lewandowski and Zielinski, to be honest. Yeah, I don't know what you guys think, but I thought Wales were certainly a more fun team to have had go. But
yeah, it's interesting.
I agree.
Go ahead.
I don't know. I also feel bad for Wales. I think that there's a lot of young players that I would like to see get on that stage in the tournament. And,
right.
and this Poland team, they've gone to a few tournaments now and just underperformed. And I think it would have been nice to see a Wales team that have excited in the last couple of Euros and have had a couple Cinderella runs. I think it would have been interesting to see what they could have done, but unfortunately they're not able to go. Some shit penalties, I think, overall. I think there was some shit penalties in all the games, but I'm sure we'll get to that.
Yeah, I mean, don't disrespect to Georgia or Ukraine, but I would have preferred if I could have an ideal scenario that both of these teams went through. I think
I was thinking the same thing.
If the tree had kind of lined up differently, it would have been nice to see both Wales and Poland because, dude, this Wales team has some players in here. I mean, you got Brennan Johnson, Nico Williams, Ben Davies. I mean, even like Kiefer Moore, Harry Wilson.
Premier League quality players.
Yeah, these are top tier players that they're putting in shifts. I mean, like you said, I think the only other name I would mention on the Poland team is obviously we've been talking about him a lot in the Arsenal squad. Kiwor. I always mispronounce that, and then of course Szczesny and Zielinski. But yeah, it's a less exciting Poland team. I think there's a couple more names that are no longer in this Poland team that we could have mentioned. So for sure, I think quality-wise, but
you got to remember that they had that awful run with Fernando Sanchez, their coach, too, that got him into this place. So it's actually pretty Fernando Sanchez-esque result to get by here. But on the Whale side, the weird thing for me was that their captain, Aaron Ramsey, I don't think he took a penalty, did he?
Didn't play. No, he did not get put in. Yeah, everybody was kind of confused as to why he sat on the bench. Yeah, for the whole of the 120 minutes, and he was not. Yeah, he wasn't asked to take a penalty, and yeah, it was a little weird. It was definitely a little weird.
Didn't play against Finley neither.
I mean, I get it. Like he is what he is, but I'm also not a fan of putting players in just for a penalty. But I feel like that's the type of game you want one of your more experienced players in. So that was weird to me.
Yeah, I agree.
And Aaron Ramsey's a class player too. Don't get me wrong. So I think he probably could have contributed. He doesn't get a minute in either of their games going into it doesn't make any sense, but it is what it is. So we will see those three faces at the Euros this summer. And we are going to talk a little bit later on who we think are some of the favorites. But first, let's talk about some of the teams that will be playing in it in their friendlies this weekend. I'll go ahead and hand it over to you guys, my Italianos who saw the team live. There was another game you can also mention, I'm sure, this weekend. But tell me your thoughts on Italy and then just the atmosphere in New Jersey this weekend.
Well, I can go first. I'll say that I'm certainly happy that we saw the second of Italy's two friendlies because they looked absolutely appalling in the game against Venezuela that happened earlier in the international break. But yeah, I think I was impressed by Italy. There was things that I liked. Spalletti is trying to use this 3-back system that he's kind of inherited. It's not something that Spalletti has usually played in his coaching career, which I kind of have my doubts about with that. But with that being said, I don't know what Gianluca thinks, but I have pretty low expectations for this Italy squad going into the Euros. I had low expectations for them going into the last Euros, and even though we won it, when we come up to talk about our favorites, I mean, Italy certainly aren't going to be in my list of favorites to defend the European trophy. Not just based off what I saw on these friendlies, just, I mean, you look at some of the names that we field and are kind of forced to field. I mean, our striker was, a naturalized Italian as of like 18 months ago. I mean, Italy haven't had a threatening attacker in a decade, as far as I'm concerned. And you look at some of these other teams. I don't know. I just don't know how we'll fare. But in terms of the game, it was great. It was a great atmosphere. I've never been to an Italy game. Obviously, I mean, Italy hasn't played in the U.S. I think for 15 years or 14 years. So there was a lot of people there who had said that it was their first time experiencing a match, and it was cool. I felt like I was surrounded by family almost in a way. It was kind of strange. Like everyone just kind of felt like you belonged, and even despite there was a ton of Ecuador fans as well. But it was cool. Like everybody got along. Italians, Ecuadorians. The parking lot was jumping. There was a bunch of people making food, selling food, handing out scarves, exchanging kits, exchanging hats. So it was a cool atmosphere. It's definitely a unique experience, one that I've never experienced before. So it was very nice.
Yeah, I agree. And just to touch on the experience, you're right. It was cool. And I think the thing that kind of surprised me the most was so many Ecuador fans after the game were coming up to us and saying, "Oh, good game."
Yeah.
And for the family thing too, I agree 100%. I mean, there was a couple of times where I saw people with Roma scarves on, and I'd be like, "Oh, Forza Roma," and like it would be a nice exchange. It was just cool. It was nice. There was Napoli fans around us, Milan fans around us. So the atmosphere was awesome. And as for the game, I thought they played well. You're right. They definitely played better than they did against Venezuela. The goal they conceded was awful against Venezuela, and I think that's just like growing pains of trying to insert like Spalletti ball, I guess you would call it, into this 3-back style of play, which I don't really think it fits at all. I agree, Angela. I do have my doubts as well. And I think it does come from the fact that I've never seen Spalletti play three at the back ever.
No.
He's always been a 4-3-3, 4-4-2 sometimes, but for the most part 4-3-3. And I really expected him to do that with the Italy team, but I think he kind of almost has no choice with the type of players he has in his team. And I will say I was really impressed with Bellanova down the right side. I'm a little disappointed that Spalletti took him off at halftime. I thought he was one of the better players on the field in the first half, and I was kind of surprised. I know he's been playing pretty well for Torino this season, but I had been questioning whether or not he's really the real deal or not, and if he's going to be if he's going to be the starting right wing back. And if we're going to play three at the back, I think it should be him because he offers so much in both attack and defense. And I think we don't really have a player like him in the team. I know DeMarco offers a very similar threat on the other side, but I don't think DeMarco is as sound defensively as Bellanova is. So
No, you're right, and I think what a lot of Italians have been saying on Twitter and even Gazzetta dello Sports predicted 11 is that it's going to be Di Lorenzo lining up on the right side, but Di Lorenzo has been pretty subpar this season, and I know I've been saying to you that I think this Bellanova kid is legit. I think he absolutely should start for Italy, and I was so pleased to see him start. I mean, he was somebody, honestly, he was the one player that I really wanted to see and was hoping to come in out of all the Italy players, to be honest. Um, so it's cool. I like a lot what I saw from him. I think the big question mark is center defense because now obviously Acerbi is involved in this racial spat that we had with Juan Jesus, and whether it was true or not, I personally don't think he should be allowed to play for the Azzurri after what he did because I think he's guilty. There was a ruling today that he's going to receive no suspension, and it's kicked up a lot of dust in the Serie A and the Italian media, especially with the Napoli supporters. But the rumor is that Spalletti might not be taking him on the plane to Germany. So I don't think Gianluca Mancini is fit enough to play center back. I'm sorry. I know you're a Romanista, but I think Gianluca Mancini is absolutely dog shit. I don't think he's an international quality player at all. And the other name, as they're saying, it might be Buongiorno from Torino, who, to my knowledge, has probably made as many caps for Italy as me. Doesn't have a lot of experience, so I'm kind of scared, to be honest. I think if we come up against a superpower, it might be pretty bad. I like the midfield duo of Jorginho and Barella, but Barella is probably going to run 100 miles at the Euros, even if we play just the group stage games, because Jorginho obviously has never been a super mobile player. So I don't know. We'll see. I like the 3-4-2-1, but I don't know. It's a shame because I just don't think we have the quality right now.
I actually disagree about where your question mark is in the team. I think I have more of a question mark in attack than I do in defense. I think the quality of players we have back there is probably good enough to get us by in most games. As in terms of scoring goals, though, I really don't know where they're going to come from.
Right.
We had obviously we had the pleasure of seeing one of my favorite players right now, Lorenzo Pellegrini, scored an absolute banger in the game against Ecuador. But other than that, like if he's not scoring goals from midfield or maybe Barella's making runs from deep and as that trailing player, I really don't know who's going to be scoring the goals. I mean, obviously Reteghi's done it a couple times against some of the smaller teams, but like for me, I don't believe in him doing that. I mean, obviously he scored a couple goals for Genoa as well, but for me, he's not like you said. Mancini's not an international quality defender. Reteghi's not an international quality forward, in my opinion, and we don't have anyone close to that. I think Chiesa might be the closest, but even him, he's not even been close to the player he was last season and at the Euros last time around. So I think my biggest question mark is how we're going to score goals, not how we're going to keep them out.
Yeah, I was actually curious. I wanted to ask. I did want to ask a little bit more about the experience in just a sec, but now that we're on the topic of tactics, I was wondering because I think when I look at Italy, it's just probably not the biggest names, right? We've seen in Italy kits. I think we've seen bigger. We've seen more world-class players. But I think the talent is there, and I think the ability is there to press. You have a lot of runners, like you were saying. I think you have a lot of good guys that can play the ball well. I think Bastoni is an excellent tool to have at the back line. I think he's going to have an excellent career. You still have the likes of Jorginho, Pellegrini, who's working really hard and having a good couple games at Roma. Barella is obviously a top-class player. I'm wondering if it's not very Spalletti in terms of how he likes to play, but if you have to try to look for inspiration from the Spanish team, which obviously you don't have Xavi, Iniesta, Busquets in your midfield, but they didn't really have much going forward besides they would play one of David Villa or Fernando Torres to score goals. And that was about it going forward, and they just crushed the opposition in possession and ball playing ability. I'm wondering if you guys think that's the kind of game plan you might have to go into if you really want a real shot at winning the Euros, or if what your game plan that you think should be.
Well, I think either way, I think Italy's going to be second favorite in any of the games where we're playing one of Europe's elite. So I think you almost have to play with players who are comfortable on the ball that can receive it under pressure. I think Barella and Jorginho are great at it. But even in the game against Ecuador, I mean, Raspadori is not a typical strong, demanding presence like a typical number 9 is, and I was kind of hoping to see Chiesa too a little bit, but I think maybe the reason why Spalletti didn't play Chiesa is because he already knows what he gets from him, and I think it's going to be Chiesa who ultimately starts on the right wing. I think Retegui is. I actually like Retegui a lot, to be honest. I was thinking about it today. I almost like the idea of turning up to the Euros with a striker who's relatively unknown amongst Europe's elite center backs. I think he might be able to throw something different at them, something unorthodox, something that they're not used to, and I kind of like that. I like when Italy are underdogs. I think we've largely always been an underdog. It certainly hasn't been a tournament in my lifetime that we've been the favorites in. Obviously, I mean, we can't even get to the World Cup to be a favorite for that. So I don't know. I think those are the types of things that play into Italy's hands. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. We definitely have the quality to keep the ball and knock it around, but I'm not even sure how much of it we'll have against some of these big teams. I don't know. I think my expectations are pretty low for the squad, despite a good performance against Ecuador, who, in my opinion, we should beat them 8 times out of 10 anyway. Like, I don't think we did anything special personally, but
Yeah, I mean, from the outside, for me, I think the biggest thing is like you don't have any locks. I think you have very few locks in any position.
Right.
I think you probably got Barella, you got Donnarumma, and you got Bastoni. I think are your main locks. I think
I agree. I completely agree.
And now it's like, who else? And now you got to fill in spots. Probably going to be playing players out of position and doing things they're not comfortable doing. And I think that's going to be a really big hindrance. I think, but funnily enough, it reminds me a lot of the squad of Portugal in 2016. You had a lot of random players who just like didn't work. Yeah. But somehow they made it work as underdogs and completely like that. So, I mean, definitely possible that you guys find some success and get something going. I think Spalletti's probably one of the better coaches you've had in the last run of coaches. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I wouldn't be so down, but I can definitely see where there's like plenty of question marks all over the place, and you can't really go in there with a ton of confidence.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Jay. I think Italy have the quality to do what Portugal 2016 did. You know what I mean? Just squeeze out games, get the results that you have to, and just really like work hard. And maybe a couple of these young players pop off. Yeah, it takes one game, one goal. I mean, Eder, like, dude, if you put the money line on him scoring the Euro winning goal, you'd bet $1 and be a millionaire. But I think it's there. But on a lighter note, you mentioned that Pellegrini goal. I know Ange, as we know from years of being friends with him, but for you Sons of Pitches to know, he has a knack for predicting stuff, especially in the football world. And there's a video out there somewhere we'll show one day of him calling a Bruno Alves goal on a Portugal friendly at Gillette Stadium. So that's a good one. So I'm wondering, Ange, you got the video of the Pellegrini goal. We'll definitely put it somewhere in our social media, so definitely take a look out for that. Did you predict that, or are you just recording it because it was one of the first chances of the game?
Well, I'll tell you this. Gianluca put his phone down immediately after the ball hit the wall from DeMarco's free kick. I don't know, something, yeah, I kind of did have a feeling. I mean, it was our first Italy game. Maybe it's... maybe this is main character syndrome, but I felt like I was destined to... I'll be honest, it was the only time I pulled my phone out to record anything, too, the whole match. You can ask Gianluca, yeah, because I got that, and I said, well, I don't need to do this anymore. I can enjoy the game. Yeah, I don't know. I get feelings sometimes, but I thought DeMarco was going to slam it in, but we got something a little better. So, yeah, it was funny.
Yeah, that was a world class finish.
I was definitely mad at myself. As soon as that free kick hit the wall, I was like, "Oh, that's a shit chance. It's over." And then, sure enough, Pellegrini just smacked it into the top corner, and I was like, "What the fuck?"
I know, a Roma player, no less.
I was a little worried that like my video was gonna come out shitty because I wasn't watching it through the phone camera. Yeah. I was watching it with my own 2 eyes, with my phone positioned. So yeah, it came out pretty good.
Yeah, it was pretty good. We'll definitely get that out there. I don't know if you guys have any closing thoughts, but I think one thing to mention, maybe you guys can give me a hint at it. Obviously, the World Cup is coming to the U.S. In a few years' time. You said you guys had a great time. I mean, the U.S. is a melting pot of immigrants from all over the world. I can see this World Cup being really good as long as they make sure, like, all the security is uptight and they have a lot of stuff. Huh?
That was a friendly.
And,
That's why it
hey,
was a good
relax.
experience.
Yeah, but hey, listen. But what I mean is that there's going to be a lot of home atmosphere-esque. There's going to be, at these Italy games, there's going to be tons of Italians. At these Portugal games, at any of these Latin American countries, there's going to be tons of support there of people who live and breathe that nation. You know what I mean? And there's Polish people here. There's people from all over the world. And I think some of these games are going to feel like home games. Like, it's going to be, I think, like, don't get me wrong, I know it's a friendly. I know it's like nice, but I think there's going to be a lot of great passion in these stadiums in the U.S. I think it's going to be a good World Cup. But tell me, I know it's just a friendly, but do you guys have that similar feeling?
Yeah, I mean, you should have heard the chants of Italia, Italia. I mean, it was like every, 3 minutes, the whole stadium was chanting it. I mean, yeah, it was kind of nuts. But I think maybe this was kind of a one-off scenario because there's been so many Azzurri crazy fans and Italians here that really have never gotten to see the national team play. But no, you raise a really good point because even the social media pages were praising the fans. Like, I think they were kind of surprised at kind of the ovations they received, even at all the meet and greets that they did that I was seeing on social media. I mean, there was tens of hundreds of, if not thousands of people. I mean, the stadium was sold out. Yeah, it was a great atmosphere, but you raise a really good point. I think the way that they're doing the World Cup is they're kind of keeping teams all along the same coast and region. Maybe they'll look at the numbers and think, obviously we have a lot of European immigrants all along the East Coast. I was kind of wondering how many European teams will play on the East Coast when the World Cup comes, but we'll see. You raise an interesting point.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I mean, but
go ahead.
If we look back at about 10 years ago, we had those two Portugal games in pretty quick succession. I mean, It was against Brazil and Mexico. They were tons of people there.
Yeah,
and double the capacity of Red Bull Arena, but definitely not a friendly atmosphere. I'll put it that way.
Oh no,
I think that was definitely unique to that game. And those were friendlies.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, you're gonna get tons of passion from everyone here because I mean, it's not the most popular sport here for sure in the U.S.
Right.
But for the people that follow it, they're diehards, especially immigrants and children of immigrants like us, like diehards for those teams. So I think you'll get a lot of passion and arguably probably more than some of the more recent tournaments because this is like a unique chance for a lot of locals to kind of get to watch these teams in person. So yeah, I'm definitely excited for it.
Yeah, and of course, a lot of people are always going to fly in like they always do. It's the biggest tournament on earth. But I think there's there's high hopes for a really passionate atmosphere as long as everything else gets run and addressed well by the U.S. Soccer Federation and FIFA. But it remains to be seen. We'll have to dive into that when it gets closer, of course. But Jay, let's talk about Portugal, who also had two friendlies over the weekend. Two vastly different performances, which I think is a look in on. Honestly, I think it's a decent thing. Like, I don't mind losing. It's a friendly, you know what I mean? And I think one thing that it highlights for me that's the best thing to take away is that Fernando was always scared to change his lineup. We had new players coming in form, but it was pretty much the same idea. Rotate maybe one or two players, and it was always the same tactics, same formation. Now we have Roberto Martinez, who I was not fully convinced on because his time in Belgium wasn't overly successful. However, he's come in and shown that, all right, I'm going to mix it up. I'm going to mix and match. I'm going to throw a B team in there. I'm going to throw a different lineup. I'm going to throw a curveball. He's taken the opportunity friendlies to like take big losses and to make mistakes and like learn some lessons. So I think I hope he continues to do that. Make the mistakes now so that when we go into the Euro, we're firing on all cylinders. But tell me how you felt about the games, Jay.
Yeah, I mean, exactly like you said it. Tale of two games. Yeah, I mean, I also had huge question marks when it came to Roberto Martinez, but because I truly believe he's failed up in every single job in his career. He was never successful, but got a better job each time. But yeah, I mean, they've been impressive under him. But I think the crazy part is we essentially played two fully different teams. I think with Pep, the only returning starter in the second game. And I mean, they're still so strong. So I think we're spoiled for riches right now. And this is without some players you expect to make the team with Diogo Jota, Pedro Neto. So I mean, that's probably the biggest takeaway for me is how well that first team played and how many players were still missing. So I actually really like the way they did it, where they kind of called up, I think, 30, 31, 32 players. Half the players, or like 10 players, didn't even show up the first week. And then half the players went home after the first week. So they kind of split the camp up, got some players some rest. So I actually was a big fan of the way they did it. But yeah, that first team, minus maybe 2 players, that's your starting lineup going forward in the Euros. That's their best team, and there's a certain somebody missing from it.
Of course, I knew Jay was going to say that. I just think, and I get it. I mean, obviously, Ronaldo's past his prime. He's pushing 40, but I just don't think the loss against Slovenia has anything to do with Ronaldo being in that starting 11. It has everything to do is that we tried a new tactic, which I'm glad we did, because I think that on paper there's potential for a 3-back. Clearly, we tried it. It didn't work. Good to know now than if we had tried it at the Euros and lost and dropped a crucial 3 points. It doesn't work. That's fine. Perfect. We'll go right back to the 4-3-3 that we played against Sweden, a Sweden side that's not all that terrible. I mean, you got probably the most informed striker in his league in Gyökeres. Maybe I'm a little biased, but he does get on the score sheet. Kulishevsky's not a half bad winger either. I mean, you got the likes of Anthony Alanga, Isaac, Lindelof. I mean, even Gustav Nilsson, who's been balling out for USG. I mean, it's not like the Sweden side is all that terrible, and we absolutely dominated the game. Controlled everything. We got a lot going forward. And then, yeah, I mean, we also play a B team, and I get it. Maybe Ronaldo shouldn't start against certain teams. Do I think we should give it a go in the same formation, same tactics in one of those group stage games since we're clear favorites to get all 9 points? I think so, because Ronaldo's presence, whether or not he's firing on all cylinders, whether or not he's a speedster like he used to be, like when you're a defender, especially a center back of the caliber that's in Portugal's group, and you're like, damn, I'm marking Cristiano Ronaldo, arguably one of the game's best players of all time. That's a mental battle that like already sets you off for the game, in my opinion. I think he demands a presence and commands that area of the field so well that it would throw them off a bit. But I get what you're saying. I do think Gonçalo Ramos is a bit more of a pressure forward, and he provides something a little different. But I think the Slovenia game is not or the Sweden game is not a let's get Ronaldo out of the team, but.
And it's not necessarily to do with the Slovenia game per se. It's more if you watch the way that they are able to play without him, it's not, you can't envision him in that team and them playing the same way. That's my biggest issue with it. Is there's so much more free flowing in attack, and that goes for Ramos playing up top. That goes for Diogo Jota playing up top. They're the type of player they are. They're able to perform in a different way. Not to say they're better, but I think they fit the team better. Okay. And then you also get this conundrum. If you're down at the end of the game, I don't think Ronaldo can give you 90 minutes at his best. And if you're down at the end of the game and you started him, you're going to sub him out. It's a tough spot. And then if that situation does happen, love the guy, but he's a diva. He's going to throw a fit, and he can ruin the entire
dressing room.
Whole. Exactly, he can ruin the dressing room like that. So that's more of the position I'm in for in this situation. I see him more as a sub that comes in, finishes a game, tight game. We're going to penalties. I want him on the pitch. Period.
Right.
Meaning he should not start that game because he can't play 120 minutes at a high level, in my opinion.
Right.
But that's not to say that he stinks. He's past it. He's still a very serviceable player. I just don't think he will contribute in the same way as others could starting the team. That's just my opinion.
So you guys think the 11 will be more like in game one? It'll be a 4-3-3. Probably Cancelo will play instead of Semedo.
Yeah.
I think
I don't think Mateus Nunes would start. But other than that,
yeah. I mean, we kind of talked about this before. That's looking like my starting lineup. I think you're putting Diogo Costa as the starting keeper, obviously. That right back spot, I think, is up for grabs. I think it could be any of the three because Semedo's been in really good form. I think he's more complete than Cancelo. Cancelo's does very well attacking. And I think Dalot is probably in between the two of them. But yeah, Mateus Nunes, I think that's going to be a rotation of that number 8 spot, depending on how fit our wingers are. Of maybe Bernardo Silva, Mateus Nunes, Vitinha, and João Neves. I think they're all going to play some sort of role in that spot. And then, center back, I don't see Pep playing every game, but I think if you throw any of Antonio Silva or Gonçalo Inácio with Pep or Diaz, or the two of them together, I think we're set. So that's pretty much the lineup I go for. Maybe with Leão off the bench, just because the way he plays against a tired defense should be illegal. Fair. It should be illegal. So it's like, if you can get him the right amount of time, give him 40 minutes, 30 minutes against a tired defense, it's game over. So that's the one hesitation I have with Leão.
If you put all your best players on the bench to start the game, you might not even be in a position to get back in it by the time they come in.
Right, but I think that's the benefit that we have with how deep this team is, in my opinion.
It really is impressive, the squad that Portugal has amassed over the years. I just wonder, what must it feel like to be someone like Vitinha or Dalot or even João Felix? I mean, they're probably not going to get a sniff at the Euros. Maybe they'll play in the third game if the group's already decided. Because, I mean, these are all players who are performing really well for really good teams. I would take a couple of these guys on Italy, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's somewhat reminiscent of like when me and Jay were kids, of like the Figo, Rui Costa era of Portugal, but the only difference is the big names that Portuguese people love to talk about were big mostly in the Portuguese league, besides the big names I just mentioned. But like now some of our quote unquote bench players start for PSG, United, I mean Barcelona. Like we are pretty spoiled for riches. I think it's going to be a matter of getting all the right puzzle pieces in the right time. And I think it's nice too, because then you can adapt, because obviously, like I said, we're favorites in the group stage. We should go mostly all out attack. We should really put the pedal to the metal in all of those games. But once we come up against some of the bigger teams, I mean, even a team like Turkey, who's in our group, who can every now and then surprise you with a performance, we have to adapt. We have to know what side of the field they're strong on, because then we play our more defensive fullback. Plus maybe a game that we know that we might lose the ball and lose the midfield a little bit in terms of aggression. We put a player like João Neves who's really good at recuperating it. And it's going to be a matter of if Roberto Martinez is tactically intelligent and if he knows how to read opposition, because we have the pieces to be able to set multiple lineups to react to near every tactic, I think, in Europe. But
oh yeah, and then in 2016 we set the precedent that, I mean, we used every single outfield player available in that run, and that team was nowhere near as deep as this one.
Right.
So I think they could easily get away with doing the same. Everybody plays some sort of role because of how talented the players are.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if we're talking specifically like performances in this weekend, Nuno Mendes is freaking unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
That guy needs to stay healthy because wow, that guy is insanely good.
Yeah, I mean, his injury kind of derailed our World Cup a bit, to be honest. He had such a presence going down that left side. It was everything.
And Leão against the defense.
Yeah. And I mean, and there's a couple of names that aren't even here. I mean, you have like Diogo Jota for one. That's another presence to go up front. I mean, and there's another name that it's escaping me right now, but Pedro Neto Bot from Sporting, who's also been on a good run. It's
Trincão.
Dude, Trincão, yeah, exactly. There's so many names that that all could win.
There's gonna be a lot of players that aren't gonna make it.
It's gonna be a headache. It's gonna be tough. And I just want the Portugal fans to really back them too, because I don't want them to get butt hurt if a Sporting Benfica player doesn't get called up. There's so many good players, and he has to just try to do what's best. But nonetheless, exciting talking about our countries, but a couple of the storylines around Europe. One of the best ones, I think, for future football. Obviously, we were just talking about Ronaldo, and the likes of players his age are going to be hanging up their boots soon. We got to talk about some of the kids that are going to fill those shoes. Endrick got his first call up for Brazil. Played 2 games at the weekend in Wembley Stadium and at the Bernabeu. Talk about some of the biggest what do I want to say? The biggest like
Stages?
occasions and
Stages, yeah.
stages. That's the word I'm looking for. Stages in the world, and he scores in both. Scores with his first shot at the Bernabeu, where he'll be playing once he turns 18. I mean, what a weekend, a debut weekend for Brazil for him. I don't know if you guys had some thoughts on that.
Yeah, I thought it was awesome. I mean, the reaction too of all the players. I feel like everybody was so happy to see him score. Um, I love that he did it against England at Wembley and kind of shut everybody up
Yeah.
briefly about Kobe Mino, but that all came back rather quickly. However, I was able to catch most of the Spain game, especially the second half when he came in, and I thought he was phenomenal. I mean, I couldn't believe how involved he got. He looked like he was so determined to get on the score sheet and make something happen. I think if you're a Real Madrid fan, you have to be really excited to see him coming over next summer.
Yeah, it's funny because I mean, he showed his age and he showed his maturity at the same time. Because like, man, to come in and do that, and those are two of the most historic stadiums in the world.
Right.
And to play two games back to back in there and score them both is crazy. But I like that goal in Wembley. He tried to play it off like he was good, and then he realized I just scored a goal at Wembley and freaked out. So that was great to see. But yeah, that kid's a player. He's a player.
Yeah. It was dope too. I love the pop collar. Like he has his own style. Like he's very different from everybody else. And I like too. After he scored at the Bernabeu, he went and celebrated with his dad of all people, which was pretty awesome. I think that was a nice touch. It shows you how close he is with his family too.
Mm-hmm.
I was saying to my friend at work, because we were talking about Endrick, I was like almost like it was unsettling watching him play. I don't know what you guys thought, but he looks like a god. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a player be that comfortable in that scenario ever, given his age. And I know I talked about Kobe Mino briefly in a previous episode of his composure and his maturity. I mean, dude, what the fuck? This kid looks like Pelé. I mean, I don't know. I think, like, I don't want to make the claim already, but I think if this trajectory keeps going, I mean, he's going to be Brazil's best player to ever kick a football, and that is saying a lot. I mean, you think of players like Pelé, Ronaldinho, Kaká. I think this kid is legit. Not to mention Brazilian Ronaldo, who I think he kind of looks like. He's like a pocket R9. That was kind of what I was thinking when I was watching him play. He's so strong for a 16-year-old. I mean, guys were bouncing off of him. Yeah, I don't know what is in the air in Brazil or what, but this kid looks unbelievable. I mean, Real Madrid's going to have a front three of Vinicius, Endrick, and Rodrigo. I don't even think they should sign Mbappe on a free transfer. I think this kid's going to be better than Mbappe. I'm not even kidding. Mbappe might be fast as fuck, but I don't know. I think if you bring in Mbappe, it's almost going to stunt his development, and I think it's a risk, to be honest, to Endrick's career. I think Endrick looks unbelievable. I don't think I've ever been more convinced by a youngster in my life, to be honest.
I know you watched a lot of the Brazilian league last year. Did he convince you at all? Or did you see him play much?
No, it makes no sense. But what I will say is that I think, I don't know. He's going to come at next. I think when he gets in Real Madrid's team and he plays against players of an elite quality around him, it's going to be unbelievable. I mean, I don't know. I can't even think of what he's going to do to teams in La Liga, and he's so young. I mean, I don't know. I mean, he might not win. Not a chance that he'll win the World Cups that Pelé won, but I think when he hangs up his boots in fucking 15 years, I think there's going to be a new greatest Brazilian ever. I really mean that.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up a good point about that maturity thing. I'm surprised to see how many of these young kids coming up are actually like mature and
almost like we're going backwards. It's kind of nice.
Exactly.
It's kind of nice. Even the way Bellingham was talking to the media after the game, and we'll get to England soon. I mean, he was kind of saying like, "Oh, we're gonna get a bunch of stick in the media because everybody thinks we're gonna win every game." But what do you guys think? I mean, there's guys making their debuts. I've never played with half these guys. No, you hit the nail on the head, dude.
But it's like, I mean, there's still some of them. Like I think, like for example, if we're just looking at England, like Gordon, I think is a little bit more. Anthony Gordon's more of that type of English player, like a Rashford, Sancho, more like whatever. They're more focused on other things sometimes. But like when you go with like Mainu, Bellingham, Endrick, what's his name, Lamal, from Barca.
Lamal,
Yep.
João Neves, like that type of player that just they give it all and they don't care about everything else. They're just there for the game. So refreshing to see. Yeah, I mean, I think we are going backwards because you can think back of all the divas that have come out of even the last like 30 years, like going back to like those Brazilian teams and all that, all those stories coming out of there. It's nice to see because I didn't think that this was possible, to be honest.
Yeah, and you bring up like that kind of like going backwards, and the thing that I was thinking too when I was watching Endrick is like it almost looks like you plucked somebody from like 1985.
Yeah,
and I don't know if it's the kit tucked in, it's the popped collar, but something about him, like I don't know. People were making jokes that like he must have the best PR team ever, but like some of the photos that he has already, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know really what to make of this letter that he wrote to his brother. I think that was kind of just like just I don't know. I think that was just a spur of the moment to keep him in the loop and keep everybody thinking of him. And yeah, I don't know. Something's going on. To be honest, something's going on in Brazil because I don't know. I don't know how they keep churning out players. I thought Vinicius was special when he was young. I thought Neymar was special when he was young. Endrick is otherworldly and almost. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, Santos Neymar was something else. I mean, he captured the entire world's attention. But yeah, like you said, it's a bit eerie. I mean, even those photos of like how he carries himself all off the pitch, like his dressing and looks just like Pele. It's like he has a presence.
Very weird.
And you say that about the tucked-in shirt. I mean, I've said that about João Neves. I mean, it sounds silly, but it's just a different level. You're not worried about what you look like because, you know, like some players don't like to tuck their shirt because they think they look goofy or whatever.
I used to do that.
Yeah, see? And you know what? I thought you were a pretty mature player, Ange. I'll give you a little praises now. But I think it's true. I think it's just they're like some of these youngsters are actually worried about playing ball. They're not worried about the fame and the money and the girls or clubbing or whatever. Like, they legit want to have good careers. And yeah, I agree. I think Real Madrid better be smart and I think actually play him, give him the game time instead of buying someone else and letting him rot on the bench because he just needs to keep growing because he's a phenomenal player. Just quickly, I wanted to say, though, I think as far as Brazil goes, I don't think their team is as high quality as it's been. And me and Jay had talked about that. No. I think there's flashes of youth. I mean, is there a Copa America this summer? No, right?
Yes.
Oh, there is.
There is. There's
yes,
one like every year.
Yeah.
There is. So I'm right. Yeah, they typically do it pretty often. I don't know if they're super favorites for that. I think there's a lot of high quality youngsters. They're gonna have bright futures, but in terms of currently at their prime, I don't think there's too many names. So it's an interesting point in Brazil's like history, I guess you could call it right now. But I think with Endrick and Vinicius, I think their future is bright. So it'd be one to watch for sure in the next couple of years. Moving on to another team. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I think they've finally gotten through that transition piece that they were in because like that like I think probably 2014 to 2018 maybe they were pretty strong,
right?
And like they have been pretty much forever,
right?
But in the last maybe like 4 or 5 years, it's been players at the end of their career, players from the Brazilian league. They get 3 or 4 appearances and then never to be seen again.
Yeah.
So like they had a really weird combination of players. Where now you look at this team, it's a lot more respectable. You have established names in it. So I think that's probably a good sign for Brazilians and bad for the rest of us because now they're just going to go through and friggin' win another one before anybody else gets a chance.
Right.
But
I think, I wanted to say, too, I have no idea what the Brazilian media would think about this because I don't read up on Brazilian media and what they think of their Telesal, but I think Brazilian fans almost like should have been ashamed of themselves, to be honest, these past years. I thought they put so much just pressure. Unnecessary pressure on not the squad, but on Neymar in particular.
Yeah.
And I think for the first time in a long time, Brazil is a team again. It's really not focused on we need to win this for Neymar, kind of like how Argentina did for Messi, and they got it done because Messi obviously goes without saying is one of the best players to ever play, and that's not to say that Neymar isn't, but I think for a while, like the downfall of Brazil and these Brazilian teams was just like it was so Neymar central, so Neymar focused, where now it's like, you know, Nate is right in that they don't have too many guys in their prime, but 2026, 2030 is looking nice, I
Oh,
think, for
yeah.
Brazil. I think
Oh,
they're going to
for
have
sure.
some players hit their prime at the same time. I mean,
Mhm.
the midfield trio they might have of Guimarães, Paquetá, and maybe João Gomez. I really like Andre from Fluminense. He's yet to make his move to England, or, well, I think it's going to be in England, but to Europe. I mean, dude, I think they're going to have a sick squad. But what I will say is they got two really good results. I mean, Spain are no mugs. I think Spain
Right.
are one of the stronger European teams, and they're kind of going through their own phase as well. But I absolutely loved that they turned up to Wembley in England's backyard
Hell yeah.
and beat England 1-0 with a back line of guys who I'm pretty sure a lot of English Premier League fans have no idea who the hell they are. I doubt they know who Beraldo is. I bet they don't know who Bruno is. I mean, not a chance they know who the goalkeeper is either. So good for Brazil. I think they got some great results. I think I'm ready for this Brazil comeback tour. I hope they remind a lot of people of the prestige that and what it means to be Brazilian, because Brazilian are the creme de la creme footballing nation. They have the most
Right.
World Cups for a reason. I mean, they're my best team of all time, national wise. So, yeah, I'm ready for this Brazil comeback tour. And Hendrick, I want a front row seat.
Absolutely. But another team that's had moments of insane squads that then don't achieve much, but have a bit of a youth in their ranks, and they're still trying to put the pieces together. And there's always a lot of critics about the team, especially about the manager. I know we've been making comments every other week about who he might pick, but Gareth Southgate in England didn't have the best weekend. I know it's just friendlies, of course, but we still have to look at it as what they can possibly put together. Obviously, like we said, Brazil turned up in their backyard, and then they also had Belgium at Wembley Stadium, and they tied 2-2. Belgium, who for me are still shades of anywhere near their best as a nation. So it's interesting. I mean, obviously, a lot of hype around Kobbie Mainoo, Jude Bellingham obviously being like one of the world's best under 23 talents. It's no question. But still a lot of questions on if Gareth Southgate picks the right lineup, if these players are ready to do something for the Three Lions. I don't know. I mean, you have Phil Foden, who's obviously class, but it's just tough. I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, to answer one of your questions, he doesn't pick the right lineups, and I don't think that he will pick the right lineups when it comes time for the Euros. I think it's absolutely appalling the way that they're talking about this England squad. I mean, England is a nation that is also so spoiled for riches by all accounts. I mean, every single person that called into TalkSport and pretty much every presenter on the show said that Kobbie Mainoo has to start for England. No, he doesn't have to start for England. I mean, he's 17. He's played 2 games. I forget his name on TalkSport, but one of the guys was saying that he thinks Kobbie Mainoo is one of England's most important players. Like, are you mad, bro? Like, he's played 2 games. I think if Gareth Southgate was to not scrap his plans, but to, like, stick Kobbie Mainoo right into the team, it might be to its detriment. I mean, I know he's a great individual player, and it seems like the one question mark in this England squad is going to be Rice and who in this double pivot midfield that it seems inevitable that they're going to play. I think Mainoo looked great. He had 2 good performances. Rice was really good too. I don't know why they're so set on playing Jude as a number 10. Because in my opinion, like, I would just play Jude next to Declan Rice, to be honest. I don't know why you need 2 sitting midfielders. I mean, you're going to go into France and probably lose again playing the same style of football. I mean, he's played the same style of football in every tournament that he's been. I think it's 3 tournaments, or this will be his 4th tournament that he's coached with England. And all right, they got to a Euro final and a World Cup semifinal, but you lost to 2 inferior opponents in both of the games. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. Italy were not the favorites to win that final, not to mention it was in Wembley, and they certainly should have beat Croatia at the World Cup. So, I don't know. It's just really strange. I don't know. I think they almost have too many riches, and they don't know what to do with them. I certainly wouldn't want to be the one making the decisions.
I think the most telling thing for me with Gareth Southgate at England is he never beats the big teams. I think I might have been listening to TalkSport too when I heard this stat, but he's played like 25 games against teams in the top 10 of the FIFA rankings. He's won 4 times.
Yep,
That is outrageously shit. So I think if you want to go anywhere, if you're an England fan, you need a more prestigious coach and a coach who knows how to get it done when the going gets tough. Because Gareth Southgate very clearly isn't that. I think it's outrageous that they're talking about him walking into a Premier League job after he leaves the England job. I think he's a horrible coach personally. I mean, I think he's a horrible game manager in my opinion. I think he makes terrible team selection. I mean, he picked Jordan Henderson again. For what reason? I don't understand. He hasn't kicked a ball at the top level in a long time. He's done nothing at Ajax, but he's still in the team. It's just favoritism at the end of the day because he
didn't even use him.
And he didn't even end up using him. He sent him home because he was injured. So, like, why are you even wasting the pick to begin with? Like, it feels like he's going left and everybody else is going right, if that makes sense. And I think it's too late now to change because the tournament is obviously coming up in a couple months now.
Yeah.
But I really think England should have taken a long, hard look at themselves going into this tournament and said, yo, we're reaching our prime here with a lot of these top players. Maybe we should consider bringing in somebody different. And they didn't do that, and I really question why.
I mean, I'll come a little bit to Southgate's defense. I don't think he's a bad coach. I think this is not the period you want to have him. I think he was great for that transition period right when he was hired, and he brought belief back into the team, kind of got them steady. But he certainly reached the ceiling. I think now England are in a position where they should be competing for titles. And I don't think Southgate will get them there. And I think to Andrew's point, there's so many. I mean, again, we're just fans, and we're sitting behind a keyboard doing all this crap. I think there's very obvious solutions to some of these problems. Like Ange said, Bellingham can certainly play an 8. Foden's played that number 10 and played even further back.
James Maddison
for City. James Maddison, I was just going to mention, can play that 10, can play an 8. So I think if you have Rice, who's such a good defensive player, you can get away with getting 2 10s who can also play 8 in front. Right. So I think that's very obvious, but there's just they always end up bringing, like, I don't think Lewis Dunk belongs getting called up when you have all these players that they have available. I don't know. I don't get it. I think there are better players, but for some reason he treats it more as a club than he does as a national team. He's not picking the best players that are out there. He's trying to build his own team regardless of who's in form, who's playing well. I mean, we saw it with Calvin Phillips starting games for England when he played maybe 100 minutes for City in the last 6 months. So I think that's a big issue. I don't think Pickford's a number 1 at all. They're never going to win with him as their number 1.
Right.
And he's gonna do the same thing with Maguire.
Yeah, Maguire. I mean, Maguire's playing well now. I'll give him his credit. He's played well since he came back into United.
Right.
But he's not a top 2 center back. I mean, if we're being honest, I think you might agree, Ange. Tomori should probably be getting more looks in this team. I think he's one of the best English center backs, Smalling too.
I thought they could have used Ruben Loftus-Cheek. I think Ruben Loftus-Cheek would be a nice compliment to Rice too. It's a shame.
I thought he's been fantastic this season. Like, what does that guy got to do to get a call up?
Yeah, not to mention Loftus-Cheek would slot well into the 8 if you really want to play Jude Bellingham at the 10.
He's been playing number 10 for Milan.
Right. And like he's probably formation. Yeah, exactly. I think I don't know. I feel like there's almost it's not an easy answer, but there's almost more obvious improvements. Do you know what I mean? It's not easy to pick the exact 11, but there's blaringly obvious improvements on the 11s that he's been picking. Right. And like Jay, I think you hit the nail on the head because Southgate's career path is basically he retired as a footballer, took over Middlesbrough, and then went into the England youth system where he took up a couple of the U21 and the U23 teams. So it was a right fit for him to take over a transitioning England squad, bring some of the youth in that he's already been working with at the lower levels. But you're right, they've reached the peak. I mean, this England squad, with the youth and the quality that they already have, should be looking, I think, at this Euro as a potential chance to take it home. And then looking at the World Cup 2026 specifically, when all these players are hitting 25 years of age, more or less, in prime time, and looking at that as the year they finally bring football home. He's not the guy, and they who knows, they might even still have him there 4 years on from now, 2 years on from now.
And I was going to say, I think if England don't make this final, it's a failure. To be honest, absolutely. I think the squad is that good. I thought it was that good in the last Euro. I think It's just a shame. I mean, I'll come to Southgate's rescue a little bit because obviously, you know, if you make the picks and you win, they were the right picks, right? And I think if you field an 11 that loses and that doesn't get the job done, they'll be seen as the wrong picks no matter what. I mean, that being said, there were some pretty good performances from the players that he picked. I mean, he seems to be pretty faithful to Ben Chilwell ever since Luke Shaw's been hurt. And I think Chilwell, especially against Brazil, was judged off an awful attempt at playing a ball into the box. I don't know if you guys saw it, but everybody was crucifying him, saying that he was awful. But I thought he did pretty good. I mean, there's some. I kind of get I understand Southgate's mindset a little bit. Like he would rather pick somebody that he can trust than field somebody new, which I respect. But I think sometimes you need to bleed new life into the team. So I don't know. I guess that's what he's trying to do with Kobbie Mainoo. Me personally, I'd be shocked if England turned up to the Euro and the first game. I'd be shocked if Kobbie Mainoo was starting. To be honest.
I think it depends on the rest of the season. But I mean, looking at the two games, if I'm a club manager of one of these players, I'm gonna be pissed with Southgate because like the one thing I mentioned earlier, Roberto Martinez rotated everybody. I don't think anybody played more than maybe 120 minutes total combined. But like Stones plays 90 minutes, gets hurt 10 minutes into the next game. Foden started both games 90 minutes apiece. Same with Rice. Like, I'd be pissed as a club manager because now you got Walker went home hurt.
They're facing off on the weekend now too.
Right. Walker was injured. Kane was injured in training. Like, that's bad management of the team, considering how many games everybody's playing. So, I think he's certainly surpassed his ceiling, and I think this should be Southgate's last tournament, assuming they don't win.
Right. I guess you got to give them the credit if they do win.
Right.
One last nation to look at, one fixture in particular, our good old US of A, who in competitive fixtures, we'll ignore this one friendly in April of 2023, haven't conceded to Mexico since June 6, 2021. It's been roughly 4 matches since the last time they've conceded to them, and they've really taken the whole US-Mexico derby by the balls. And honestly, they look really good. They're going to be participating in the Copa America this summer. And honestly, I think if some of these really, really young players, we keep talking about young players. I mean, there's a couple of good ones in this side. If they keep improving, if they hit a bit of form, I think the U.S. could actually make a little run for the Copa America this summer. How did you guys feel about our home nation in this tournament and this weekend?
I actually disagree. I don't know. Every time I watch USA play, I feel like I'm watching a bunch of individuals and not a team. It feels like they're so heavily reliant on individuals to make things happen. I mean, it feels like every time I watch them play, if Pulisic doesn't make something happen or Gio Reyna doesn't pull something out of the bag, they're not going to score. And even the final. I mean, it took a Tyler Adams absolute banger from the parking lot to even put them in front. Against Jamaica, they went down in a minute, and it took them the whole game to even find a goal. I mean, it was a scrappy one, and another one where Gio Reyna's pulling something out of his ass. So, if I'm a U.S. fan, I don't really think they're going to do much against some of these bigger nations, especially the South American nations who are obviously going to be in the Copa America as well. I think they're going to really struggle because those nations, in my opinion, are more team-like and not individualistic like the U.S.
Yeah, I'm probably halfway between Nate and G because I truly believe Berhalter is the reason their coach. I think he's a terrible coach. He shouldn't be touching this team with a 10-foot pole. He's not good. And especially after all the junk that happened before, I don't even know how he was brought back. But yeah, I mean, like G said, I mean, like Nate said, there's a lot of good young talent, mostly because they're finally. U.S. soccer has come to this realization that they can't develop their own players. They have to accept that the players developed in Europe are superior with Reyna, Pulisic, and now everybody else like McKinney and Adams moving to Europe. Like those are the players that should be carrying the team. That's too way up. Like all these players, pretty much everybody plays in Europe. Nobody plays in the MLS anymore. And I think that was their downfall the previous seasons. But one thing I will say, dude, I'm sick of the USA-Mexico. They play each other every single year, sometimes multiple times a year, for these fake made up tournaments. Like, I'm so sick of it. They've definitely fully like drained this one out. Like, this is like, I don't get excited for these games. They used to be fun to watch, because the way we see international soccer, you play a team once every 3, 4, 5 years sometimes.
Right.
So like, each game is important. Play this team 5 times in, I think, 4 years. Like, I'm so sick of it. In Mexico, on top of it, that is a sorry sight to see that squad, what they were, and they're nowhere near their best.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was honestly, the game was kind of hard to watch. The last couple renditions of USA Mexico were kind of hard to watch. They make it to be out, and they make it out to be such a spectacle. And I get it. I mean, the PR wise, like if there was ever if there was ever something for an American to get up for, it'd be beating the Mexicans at anything, you know. So I think that's why in the media they try to hype it up, but I mean, on the same day that I watched USA beat Mexico, I also watched Italy play Ecuador, and I think the gap in quality in the games was fucking miles. I mean, it was unbelievable. The Mexico team does suck. I mean, they suck. I mean, it's insane. I don't understand the fall off. I know they've been having a lot of problems in the Mexican FA with money, and I'm not sure if that has anything to do with it, the development of the league or whatnot.
Yeah,
I can't say that I'm well versed on it.
They're trying to go kind of MLS route and kind of privatize it and close the league and do stuff like that. So yeah, they're gonna drop significantly because Mexicans don't have the money to go to Europe like the Americans do to kind of kickstart their careers.
Yeah, but let me finish quick. But I was gonna say, but on a positive note for the U.S., it is 3 CONCACAF Nations League wins in a row. Okay, cool, 3 trophies. It's nice that this crop of players that we have are growing together, building together. I mean, the vibes are great. I mean, it seems like everybody gets along. It's definitely something that other nations either don't have right now or kind of struggle with. I think that is the one thing that is pretty cool. But my one question mark is, yeah, I mean, you have players that are just playing all over the world in so many different styles, and I would really like to see Jose Mourinho take USA on, to be honest. I know that was the rumor, and it is kind of wild to think that he would ever come close to managing players of this quality, but I think they are good quality players, and I would love to see him come in. I really was hoping we'd lose to Jamaica after we started so shit against them. I caught most of that game, too. I was praying for the U.S. to have just any small reason to sack Berhalter.
Yeah.
But, I mean, hey, they won a trophy. It's nice that this group of players is growing together because there are some bright spots. But, yeah, it's time for a new coach.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to say real too. I think it's so crazy to me that this Mexico team is so bad, and Santiago Jimenez can't even get a sniff.
It doesn't play. Makes no sense.
He doesn't play at all. I mean, he gets 20 minutes here and there, never a start. I mean, that kid is absolutely banging goals in the Eredivisie. He was such a threat when Roma played Feyenoord. Every time over the last 3 years now we played them, he's been so good, and he can't even see the field. So I gotta wonder what's going on there. I really don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's fun. I think there's a lot of big names in the USA team in terms of future talent: Anthony Robinson, Reina, Adams, Pulisic, Weah, McKinney. But yeah, I agree. I think the management is not helping it at all. But I mean, it's good signs because obviously, being the country that we live in, it's nice to see that the sport we love is really growing, and it's something we can be more excited about in terms of our home nation. I know our allegiances lie where our parents came from, but nonetheless, it'd be something nice to see if they continue to improve. But we will wrap up a little bit different since the games were a little bit less important. Instead of doing a 5-a-side, we want to talk about the Euros a little bit, highlight that, get a little prediction going on who our top 5 favorites are, and then we'll vote in a dark horse for the tournament this summer. And then, of course, we'll revisit this as the season comes to a close and the tournament comes to an open. But anyone want to shout out the first name, the nation in Europe that they think would consider nothing but a failure if they win or didn't at least get to the final?
Well, I think Angela already nailed one with England. I think that's the easy shout. I'm struggling to think of a second one that I think if they don't make the final, it would be considered a failure. But I think England for sure. If they get knocked out in anything earlier than the final, I think heads will roll in that managerial position.
Well, I'll tell you this: I'm certainly not struggling to think of a second one because I think the team that is the favorite are the French. I think the French team is unbelievable, and I almost laugh to myself when English fans just think that they're going to lift this trophy no problem. Because I think the France team is unbelievable. Personally, I think France are the favorites, and I think they will win the tournament. In my opinion, but I think the other teams are probably Germany, Spain. I kind of struggle to put a number on the fifth team. To be honest, I think there's a lot of dark horses, though. What do you think, Jay? Portugal.
I think we have to put Portugal in there just because of the talent.
Yeah.
But
you know what? You're right. Actually, I think you're right. I'm gonna be honest. I forgot about Portugal. I think I like Portugal better than Spain. Probably better than Germany too.
Yeah.
I saw your face. I was like, oh, I forgot to say somebody, didn't I?
Yeah, I think if we're looking at the big three, I think for the biggest chance to win, I would definitely say it's France, Portugal, and probably England.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I probably put Spain and Germany into a similar category, but I don't know if they're really there.
The thing that I find funny,
host, right?
Germany are the hosts.
Germany is the host.
Yeah.
I think
But
Germany
they're the worst of the five.
See, I don't know. I think they're going to surprise people.
Me too. I think their midfield's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say about Portugal right now, I don't know about you guys because you guys are biased. You guys are Portuguese, but from the outside, like Portugal have never ever been a favorite to win anything, in my opinion.
True.
I'm going to be completely honest. Even with Ronaldo, even when Ronaldo was winning Ballon d'Ors consistently, even when he was arguably the best player in the world at certain times of his career, I don't think they've been the favorite to win anything. I think this is the best Portugal squad ever that I've ever seen. I don't know about you guys.
I'd agree.
Whether Ronaldo's in that or not, I think even if you took Ronaldo out of this squad, it would still be the best Portugal squad I've ever seen, which I think says a lot. I think it speaks a lot to the quality of Portuguese soccer and how far it's come. But I kind of wanted your take on that because for me, I think it's like without a doubt the strongest I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Portugal. I think this is Portugal's best chance to win a trophy again. Because I think we both have the ability to be honest about our respective countries, and I think Italy and Portugal won their Euros at times where nobody would have expected them to. Like if you look at the Euros as a whole, a favorite hasn't won the Euros since probably 2012. I think Spain would have probably been the favorites going into that tournament. So it's kind of cool because, I mean, we can list out these favorites, but for all we know, like Netherlands will probably fucking win it. I mean, I don't know. Who knows? But I kind of wanted to get your takes. Kind of wanted to get your take on my Portugal take.
I think I think you have a point because it's interesting because when Portugal haven't always been on the map. I think Ronaldo really did that for them as a nation. But there are a couple Portuguese legends that are easy to name, especially if you're an actual football fan. Go ahead.
Portugal for a little while were like Sweden to me.
Okay.
They had Zlatan, they had nothing else. You know what I mean? Like,
that's 2014. I'd agree.
It's a little disrespectful to Portugal because they definitely had more quality. But you know what I mean? They're like Hungary with Szoboszlai. They're like Sweden with Zlatan. Yeah. They're like what Switzerland was with just Shaqiri for a little bit. Mm-hmm. Like, that's what Portugal was. They were the best of those types of teams. And now they really are. They really are one of Europe's elite squads. I mean, we have to call a spade a spade. Yeah, I think you're right. They probably should be second or third favorite.
Yeah, because what I was going to say is because you can name legends like Eusebio who probably had a Portugal squad like Ronaldo did, and he was kind of by himself. And then you have players like when the Rui Costa Figo Deco era, it was the trio, but then again, not overly too much else, and even Ricardo Carvalho, I get the back line.
Yeah.
But this is the first time, while I don't think any player outside of Ronaldo has yet to establish themselves on that figure of football. There's quite a few of them that if their trajectories but they won't really reach the Rui Costas, the Figos, Ronaldos, but their caliber on average is significantly higher. It's a huge step. Right, and I have to agree. I think even if you pull Ronaldo's average out, I mean, You just don't see, especially for me, it's the depth, because I've seen some good Portugal lineups with Ronaldo, like half decent, but then one injury throws the whole team off. And for now, there's 3, 4, 5, 6 injuries that could happen. I still think Portugal would have a solid team.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I think if we look back at like that 04-06 squad with Rui Costa, Figo, Ronaldo,
Right.
all that, they were basically a starting 11, and even
Nothing
within
else.
there was a hole or two, and there wasn't much else to really look for in terms
Right.
of talent. Like, dude, I remember some of these teams, especially Euro 2012 is like what screams to me. There was awful players we had to like put out there, and it was kind of crazy.
Okay.
And now we're looking at the teams now. Like, I'd be more confident with that B team that played and lost 2-0 to Slovenia than probably most of the squads that have gone to tournaments in the last like 10 years. Yeah. So it shows how far we've come. But yeah, this is it. This is like the make or break period, because now that second generation of players after Ronaldo, like the Brunos, the Bernardos, like those kind of players are in their primes.
Right.
Like this is it for them. Like this is the best you're gonna get of them. So I think this is where they have to go and prove themselves and give the experience to these younger guys to get them ready for 2026 when we go for the World Cup.
And I have to say too, it's almost like it's almost like a good and a bad thing. Like we got to roll with the punches, me and Jay, because can you only imagine if Ballon d'Or winning Ronaldo was sitting up top in the creative outlets of this team? I'd argue Portugal would be number 1 favorite to win this Euro.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Ronaldo with 5-6 years
60 goals a season, Ronaldo in front of this team. I mean, it'd be curtains in my opinion, unless they fucked it up.
Yeah, no,
but it's also the fact that Ronaldo was good then and carried Portugal to semi decent results, and then eventually we did get that 1 Euro that kind of set the stage for this, because I think the attention that Portuguese football got, and the likes of Sporting and Benfica producing talent year in, year out, and then having the name, Portugal having the name for those talents to go around Europe and train and improve, I think it set the stage for it. So I'd have to agree. I think the most justified final at the moment, from what I see, is probably England-France. However, I think Portugal have a very, very, very good shot of this time actually really deserving a Euro win.
Right.
In my opinion.
Yeah. And even right below them, I want to talk about, I think that next category of teams would be Germany, Spain, Netherlands, Italy, I guess. Now, you guys had said that you don't really know if Germany's that good. Now, I tend to agree, to be honest. I think Germany are probably the team that I dislike the most of all the European countries, to be honest. But, I mean, you look at the friendly results they had. They beat a really good France in France. They beat the Netherlands. I don't know. It's going to be fun. I think this is the first time in a while where like there's like 5 or 6 really, really strong nations coming into this Euros. I know in the last rendition of the Euros, I think Germany and Spain and even the Netherlands. Were the Netherlands in it? I don't even remember if they were in it, but they must have been in it. But point being, the 3 of those nations were really going through rebuilding periods.
Yeah.
So were us Italians, but I think Italy had some players that were in their prime at the ends of their careers, and ultimately it was that experience that helped propel Italy forward into winning that Euro. But I think right now this is probably going to be the best Euros that we've seen in our lifetime. I think there's some really strong teams. It's hard to even put a finger on an underdog, because I think it's really like France to Netherlands, and then everybody else, there's kind of a gap underneath.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of tough. I mean, I feel like picking Netherlands as an underdog would be kind of easy. They're perennial underdogs in every competition they ever turn up to, whether it's the Euro or the World Cup. But do you guys think a Germany or a Spain should be considered underdogs? Because it seems like you, Nate and Jay, I'm talking to here. Maybe Gianluca thinks the same, but it seems like you guys think that there's a bit of a gap that exists between France, England, Portugal, and then Germany and Spain.
I agree.
I just think that tactically and just the depth of the team, those 3 nations that we talked about have an edge, right? I don't think the gap is necessarily huge because I think Germany. You know what? We were talking about England and Brazil going into 2026 having an amazing squad. I think some of this German youth and especially these Barcelona products who are all Spanish are going to be hitting some decent peaks at that time. I think this Euro is going to be excellent, but I think it's only just going to be a window into the type of quality we're going to see going into the 2026 World Cup.
I like that.
So I think for Germany and Spain, I think I'd rank them together again, kind of like what Jay was saying, and I think you mentioned too, Ange, because I think they have just a decent amount of presence in terms of age and experience. I mean, you got Rodri in that it was arguably, if not like perfectly solidified as the best midfielder in the world right now in terms of what he contributes to the Man City squad, at least a holding midfielder. And he's going to sit in that Spain squad nice. And then, I mean, some of the best youth product. I mean, you have Kubarsi, who might step in the defensive role. You have Lamine Yamal, who played in these friendlies, and he's 16. I think Germany has good quality. Like you said, you had Toni Kroos, you got Jamal Musiala, Wirtz, Kai Havertz is hitting a good peak. Mm-hmm. But then I think the Netherlands is a good shout too. I think for me it's an easy way to say dark horse because they fall out, I think, of the top 5. So it's the easiest pick. But I mean, even them, Xavi Simons is hitting some form. You still got players like Frimpong. You still got players like Virgil van Dijk in that team. I mean, dude, this Euros, I think it's like a 7 or 8 nation battle, and then these underdogs are going to try to do some magic, but it's going to be wild, I think. I think you hit that one really good. I think it's going to be a great Euro.
Yeah.
We haven't even talked about Belgium at all.
Oh, I know.
I think they're going to be a non-factor, if I'm honest.
I agree.
Right,
Yeah, but I mean, like, for me, I think you look at it as tiers. Like, if you want to do like a classic tier list, like the S tier thing, like I'm thinking it's England, Spain, and Portugal. Not Spain. England, France, and Portugal, I think, are very clearly the 3 best teams. And then I think that next level is probably have a Spain, Germany. Maybe you could throw Netherlands in, but that's close.
I'm going to be completely honest. I think England and France are the only 2 S tier. I think
really
I would put Portugal itself betwin.
Okay.
As an extra tier, I see what you're saying.
I'm not upset by
that. I think I agree with what you guys say about how deep this Portugal team is and all this. But I think my biggest question is with your tactics and Roberto Martinez. He's going to be able to put the team together.
No, that's fair. That's fair. But I mean, I think from what he's shown me, I believe he's getting way more out of the team than Francesc got, like significantly more out of the team, especially their better players. So that's why I probably put him a little bit higher, like from watching all the games. But yeah, I mean, after that, I mean, the tier after that, if you're talking Netherlands, Spain, Germany, and then maybe throw Italy in there or the next one underneath with like a Belgium, maybe a Denmark, like Croatia, like that level team. That's where I'm seeing it at right now. But again, we got 6 months to see where it goes. And these friendlies could have been pretty crucial in teams that haven't played many games together. Yeah. Like in Italy, hasn't played many games under this coach with these players. Right. So we'll see how valuable it really was.
Yeah, to wrap up, you know what? I think I like the tier thing. I think we're going to say it here first. I think come around June when these next round of friendlies come in right before the thing, I think we should do a little tier, see how we feel about it.
I don't think there is. I'm pretty sure I don't think there's any more friendlies. Is there?
I think
this is the last international break before the Euro.
June 7th, June 10th, Poland has 2 games. Unless they,
there will be games before the Euro, I believe, some prep games, but that's after the season's already ended.
Right.
So this is the last break.
Yeah, it's going to be like right into those, like they're like tactic building games. Yeah, because I think it's going to be interesting. But yeah, I think it's a lock for our top 5 favorites in no particular order besides slight grouping as France, England, Portugal, Germany, Spain. I know we said the Netherlands. Is there any out of the park dark horses? Names like Croatia, who we've seen go well, but I don't know how good they are compared to their recent form. Anyone any out of pocket dark horses that we want to mention before we wrap up this conversation?
I mean, I think Turkey might be able to make a run, considering that we have pretty easy group. I think they're probably the clear second best team. with Portugal, Georgia, and Czechia. So I think they might be able to pull something off.
Okay.
So that's one shout.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't mention Italy too much in this conversation, but I think Italy and the Netherlands are in the similar bracket. I think they're just outside maybe the top 5 favorites, but I think the quality is there in both of those nations. Maybe a little bit of a favorable draw.
I guess the only other nation I want to talk about is Denmark. I was going to bring up Croatia, but the group is like super tough, so I'm not even sure if they'll be able to squeak out in third place, assuming that Italy is hopefully second.
Right.
But Denmark was the dark horse team of the last tournament. Obviously, they had some controversy with Eriksson and the sad scenes that took place with him, but it was very cool to see how they rallied as a nation to support Denmark. And I mean, I think they were semifinalists, right? They were ultimately lost to England in the semifinal, and were a game away from the final. So we'll see. But I think kind of like what we were saying earlier in the conversation is I'm not sure. I mean, the furthest a dark horse might get is the first knockout stage game. I mean, that's literally how strong the top 7 or 8 nations in this Euros are this year. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
You know what? To kind of put a bow on it, I think Denmark's a good shout for an out of pocket dark horse, just because actually they a midfield 3 is pretty good. I think it's Jensen, Hjulmand, and Højbjerg, who by all accounts they're not the best midfielders in the world, but they're quality players, and a nation like Denmark tends to really rally together and play like a team. They never typically try to rely on just one player, so I think you're right. I think they're probably the second best team in that group, and then I think of the second best teams that aren't in our contention to win the Euros, they have the best shot to kind of create an upset if they get a favorable draw. So I think it's, in terms of an outlier dark horse, I think it's going to be a lot on how the knockout stages get drawn out. But yeah, regardless, I think this Euro is going to have excellent football being played. And I think there's going to be a merited winner regardless.
Who do you think wins? You guys want to try to pick now, or should we
pick a winner?
I got one pick, and that's it. You already know it.
Kids that say Portugal.
Of course.
I'd love to see Portugal win, but
funny because I really wouldn't even think of them. It's so funny.
I'd love to see Portugal. I want to see Portugal, but my money just has to go on France. I think if I just had to pick one gun to my head, it'd be France probably.
Yeah, I think it's a France-Germany final. I'll give you that.
Okay. Ange's premonitions. We'll have to see if they change getting closer. G, throw a name out there. Number 1 team, you think?
I'm going to go with France, but I think I won't be surprised if Germany makes the final at all.
Okay.
At all.
Okay, fair.
Good, that's smart. Jump on the train now.
Yeah.
Honestly,
we said it early. It's on the record now.
I've been feeling that I think Germany's going to do well in this tournament the whole time. I mean, they're the hosts. I think their midfield is phenomenal. Toni Kroos coming back out of retirement is huge for them. Massive. I think it's just going to add so much to their midfield, which is already so good. I mean, when you talk about players like Musiala, Gundogan, Wirtz, and you add Toni Kroos in there as well, I mean, they have easily one of, if not the best midfields in the Euros. And I think that in a tournament like the Euros, we see so many of these games won and lost in the midfield. Like that's where the battle happens. So I think that Germany is going to be a real powerhouse in this tournament for sure. I wouldn't be surprised if they go far at all.
Yeah, and I think they need it in their history too.
Yeah, I'd just be worried about defense and Neuer being fit. I mean, Ter Stegen's a good backup. But I also don't think that they're the deepest team. This isn't the deepest Germany we've seen in a long time.
You're right, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I think Germany's a good show. I think they really need it. They've had some pretty disappointing tournaments over the past couple of years, so I think they need it for their morale. But overall, I think that was a great conversation. It's the international break is a love-hate relationship because we have to miss out on our club football, but we also get to see all our favorite nations play some games. So next time we'll have this conversation, we'll be closer to the Euros, and we'll be more excited for that. But make sure you stay tuned for when we get coverage of all the weekend games that will be starting to take place as this pod goes live. So enjoy this while it's out, but then make sure you keep up with us on all our social medias, keep up with all our videos, and of course, keep on being the son of a pitch.